before the oceans existed, before the stars filled the sky, before the first human ever breathed, there was only God. And what happened next changed the entire history of the world. God looked into the darkness and said, "Let there be light." And suddenly, light burst through the darkness. Day and night were separated. On the second day, God created the sky, stretching it wide above the earth. On the third day, the waters gathered together and dry land appeared. Grass began to grow. Trees began to rise. Flowers began to bloom. The world was slowly coming to life. On the fourth day, God placed the sun, the moon, and the stars in the sky. The stars filled the heavens like diamonds scattered across a black canvas. On the fifth day, the seas were filled with fish and living creatures, and birds began flying across the skies. Then came the sixth day. God created animals to walk on the earth. But then, God did something extraordinary. He created human beings. God formed the first man from the dust of the ground and breathed life into him. His name was Adam. For the first time, a human opened his eyes and saw the beauty of God's creation. God placed Adam in a beautiful garden called Garden of Eden, a garden full of rivers, trees, animals, and perfect peace. But Adam was alone. So God created a woman from Adam's side. Her name was Eve. Together, they lived in the garden with everything they needed. God gave them only one command: do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Everything was perfect until temptation came. One day, a serpent approached Eve. It whispered a dangerous lie. Did God really say, "You cannot eat from that tree"? The serpent convinced Eve that eating the fruit would make her wise like God. Eve took the fruit, and she ate it. Then she gave it to Adam, and he ate it too. At that moment, sin entered the world. Fear entered the world. Shame entered the world. Adam and Eve suddenly realized they were naked, and they hid from God. When God called out to them, their hearts were filled with guilt because of their disobedience. They could no longer stay in Eden. They were sent out of the garden, and life became filled with pain, struggle, and hard work. But heaven 10, God still loved them. Adam and Eve had children, 2 sons named Cain and Abel. Abel became a shepherd. Cain became a farmer. One day they both brought offerings to God. Abel gave the best from his flock, but Cain gave an offering without the same heart. God accepted Abel's offering, but he rejected Cain's. Jealousy filled Cain's heart. Until one day, in a field, Cain attacked his brother Abel, and Abel did the first murder in human history. God asked Cain, "Where is your brother?" Cain answered with the famous words, "Am I my brother's keeper?" But God knew the truth. Cain was punished and forced to wander the earth. As generations passed, people multiplied across the earth. But something terrible happened. Human hearts became filled with violence and evil. The world that God created with love had become corrupted. But among all the people on earth, one man was different. His name was Noah. Noah loved God. Noah obeyed God. And because of Noah, humanity would survive what was coming. God told Noah something shocking. A flood was coming that would cover the entire earth. God instructed Noah to build a massive boat called the Noah's Ark. For years, Noah built the ark while people mocked him. They laughed at him. They called him crazy. But Noah trusted God. Then one day, the rain, big animals, entered the ark 2 by 2. Noah and his family went inside, and the rain fell for 40 days and 40 nights. Floodwaters covered the entire earth, but the ark floated safely above the waters. Finally, the rain stopped. Months later, the ark came to rest on dry land. God made a promise to Noah. Never again would a flood destroy the whole earth. And God placed a rainbow in the sky as a sign of that promise. As people multiplied again, they gathered together and decided to build a massive tower. A tower so tall it would reach the heavens. This became known as the Tower of Babel. But their goal was pride. They wanted to make a name for themselves instead of honoring God. So God confused their languages. Suddenly, people could no longer understand each other. The people scattered across the earth, forming different nations and languages. Years later, God called a man named Abraham. God told him, "Leave your home and go to a land I will show you." Abraham obeyed, even though he did not know where he was going. God made an incredible promise to him. God said, "I will make you the father of many nations," even though Abraham and his wife Sarah were old and had no children. But Abraham believed God, and because of that faith, God blessed him. In Genesis chapter 15, God made a covenant with Abraham. He told him to look up at the stars in the sky, and God said, "So shall your descendants be," a promise that would shape the future of the world. From creation to the fall, to the flood, to God's promise to Abraham. The book of Genesis shows us one powerful truth. Even when humanity fails, even when the world becomes broken, God never stops working to save his people. And the story that started in Genesis continues all the way to Jesus. If you learned something from this story, type amen in the comments and share this message with someone today.